How do you learn to play jazz or even teach someone how to play jazz? Here's a general roadmap, both for students and teachers. And a viewer asked for this a while ago, so here it is. First, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. I've been away for a little while, but now I'm back. So let's get on with it. To start, you need reasonable control over your instrument. It doesn't have to be perfect, but things will go a lot smoother if you can at least play major and minor scales over a couple of octaves. If you play guitar, make sure you can play scales using movable fingerings, not just in first position. Also, for guitarists and bassists, know the names and positions of the notes, at least up the two lowest strings. Your knowledge of scales, arpeggios, and other patterns will grow as you progress. So will your level of technique. It's an ongoing process. So aim to play everything smoothly, fluently, and with controlled touch and tone at speeds up to around 208 beats per minute. Of course, that could be a longer term goal for you, so you'll need to work your way up to it gradually over time. To give you an idea of where you're headed, here's what a scale sounds like at a few different speeds, starting at a relatively slow 100 beats per minute. (120 beats per minute). (180 beats per minute). And 208 beats per minute. You'll need to go faster than that eventually, but that's a pretty solid goal to start with. If you can't do that yet, then work towards it gradually. Life is short and excuses don't make music. Practice does. Start by improvising using key centers. Check out my videos on the major blues scale and minor bebop scales for a starting point. Links are in the description. There's other videos on YouTube too, of course. Think of two basic tonalities, major and blues on the one hand, minor on the other. Play tunes that make that kind of approach possible. Some chord progressions are harder than others, so pick ones that are clear and manageable for you. If you're determined to jump straight into your favorite Chick Corea or Bernie McGann tune, that's fine, but expect some frustration. Some things really are just too tricky for beginners. At first, you'll just be getting used to the sound and the idea of improvising with a band or backing track. Use this time to focus on sound, style, and rhythm. Listen to simple but realistic examples of professional jazz musicians improvising. You'll need to emulate the sound, feel, and phrasing of jazz. Be honest with yourself. Does what you're playing actually sound like jazz? If not, why not? What can you do to get closer? You're not aiming to be a perfect imitation of someone else, but early on, you're approximating the sounds of jazz. When you're using a backing track, focus on the bass and the drums. Use them like a metronome to help you lock in with the groove. Once you're comfortable playing in key centers, start tackling tunes that change keys. Some good examples of these tunes include multiple major or minor keys, like Take the A Train or Moten Swing, or a mix of major and minor tonalities, like Bernie's tune, There Is No Greater Love, Blue Bossa, just to name a few. I've already done a video on tunes for beginners, and I'll link to a list of useful examples in the description. Gradually increase the number of key changes in tunes that you solo over. 1 key, 2 keys, 3, 4. At some point, the key centers will start shifting too quickly for a key center approach to work, and that's when you transition to improvising over chord changes. But this current stage, multiple key centers, isn't just about key changes and harmony. It's also about developing your sense of time. Time means playing in sync with other musicians, keeping track of bars or measures as they go by, and developing an instinct for phrase lengths. 2 bars, 4 bars, 8, 12 bars, and so on. So for example, you might play in 1 key for 8 bars, then switch for 4 bars, then another 4 bars. Blue Bossa does that, for example. It's in C minor for 8 bars, then it changes to D flat major key center for 4 bars, then it goes back to C minor for the last 4 bars of the chorus. Importantly, you're not just changing keys, you're also training yourself to feel the form of the music as it moves. Once you're fairly solid with key centers and keeping time, it's time to take the next step, playing through chord changes. Now this is where things like guide tones, arpeggios, and 2/5 licks come into play. Instead of playing in broad key centers and tonalities, you're playing something specific, something different for each individual chord. A listener should be able to hear the chord progression in your solo and even recognize the tune just from what you play in your improvised solo. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to start here. That's a bad idea. Work your way up to it. Some people will reach this stage in hours or even minutes. Others will take much longer, and that's fine. Everyone's different. But be realistic with yourself. If you go looking for an excuse not to do the work, you'll definitely find one. This is a major stumbling block for many players, so expect to put in focused effort if you want to get through it. You can, but it takes a little bit of work. Now, the next step is playing creatively and fluently through chord changes. Once you're handling chord changes, the next challenge is making your solos more creative, fluent, and interesting. This is where you'll start adding things like exotic scales, for example, altered scales, whole tone, etc., different phrasing techniques, odd meters, exploring complex accenting patterns, and anything else that adds variety and contrast to your playing. Okay, maybe even triple quarto harmonic Balkan major minors. I just made that up. Or did I? Anyway, by this stage, you'll have a clear sense of what you need to work on next. Okay, so final thoughts. If you're a student, it's your jazz journey. Take as much or as little time as you need at each step, but be realistic. We musicians are great at self-delusion, whether it's overconfidence or crippling self-doubt. So make sure you're working on what you actually need to work on, not what you wish you needed to be working on. And if you're a teacher, don't skip steps, but also don't waste too much time trying to perfect one thing before moving forward. Keep the momentum going. This roadmap focuses on improvised soloing, but there's a lot more to jazz than just soloing. I might do another video on rhythm section playing and other essential skills. But that's it for now. Happy teaching or learning, and see you next time.